सदेव देवो भगवान् प्रतीक्षताम् कलेवरं यावदिदं हि नोम्यहम् प्रसन्नः सारुणलोचनोल्लसत् मुखाम्बुजो ध्यानपथश्चतुर्भुजः. Translation. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone after quite a bit of gap. I purposefully chose this verse to start off with because that makes the connect with what happened in the last class. So we are studying Passing Away of Bhishma Dev, chapter 9 of the first canto. We have come to the point where Bhishma Dev is expressing to Yudhishthir his personal depth of relationship with Krishna, and he is expressing confidence in that relationship. In Mukundamala Stotra, there is a similar verse where नाथे धातरि भोगि भोगशयने नारायणे माधवे देवे देवकी नंदने सुरवरे चक्रायुधे शार्गिणी लीलाशेष जगत् प्रपंच जठरे विश्वेश्वरे श्रीधरे गोविंदे कुरु चित्तवृत्तिमचलाम् अन्यैस्तु किं वर्तनैः. So King Kulashekara is similarly praying, think only of your master and sustainer, the Supreme Lord, who is known as Narayana and Madhava, and who lies on the body of serpent Ananta. He is the darling son of Devaki, the hero of the demigods, and the lord of the cows, and he holds a conch shell and the bow Sharanga. He is the husband of goddess of fortune and the controller of all the universes, which he manifests from his abdomen as a pastime. What will you gain by thinking of anything else? So, in a similar mood, periodically and eventually constantly, a devotee should learn to draw his attention completely on the Nama Rupa Guna Leela of the Lord. Periodically in our case, because we have 100 of self-created duties to maintain and we need to do them, yet we need to bring back our attention to the real object of our meditation. This practice will save us at the most dangerous moment of our life, the moment of death. So now we will continue with further description of what happened between Yudhishthir Maharaj and Bhishma Dev. Suta Uvacha Yudhishthirastada Karnya Shayanam Sharapanjare Apruchad Vividhan Dharman Rushinam Chanushrunvatam. Translation.
After hearing Vishnu speaking that appealing to all the influence of all the great deceits about the essential principles of various religious entities.
Where is the word for appealing tone in Sanskrit? There is no word. Where did Prabhupada get it from? So there are two things. Prabhupada often does this. He begins his purport in the translation itself. And secondly, this Yudhishthiraha tad akaranya. This word akaranya is often used in a very, very appealing setting. When two people are talking to each other and the other party, who is on the listening terms, is hearing something very sweet. Then the Sakrut Akaranya Rochanam, Bhagavatam says, even once who has heard the appealing pastimes of the Lord, his material life is finished. Many places this word Akaranya would come. And therefore, in our dealings with devotees, we should try and keep a tone that is appealing to hear. Usually you will see battles are fought over not just you said this, but the way you said it. So they say 7% is conveyed through the content, 38% is conveyed through the tone of voice, and 55% is conveyed through body language. So we may say whatever, but these things matter a lot in communication. Now, without going into that part, the point is, if you have to summarize the problems that people have, anytime anybody comes to you and they are saying about some problem, all the problems of all people in the world can be just summarized in two statements. He or she said this or didn't say this, and he or she did this or didn't do this. That's it. So that is like the big picture you can have. What is problem? This is problem. And therefore, unless a person on listening terms, on the receiving end, is not actually in sync, as they call it, the communication has no meaning. The meaning of your communication is the response the other person gives to you. It's an interesting statement. The meaning of your communication is the response the other person gives to you. Because that's what they have figured out as the meaning. So, in case of Bhishma Dev, he is very, very simple, straight from the heart, and perfectly Krishna conscious. Speech was naturally very pleasing for everyone to hear. And thus, hearing those words of Bhishma, Yudhishthiraha tad akaranya, after hearing Bhishma Dev speak in that appealing tone, Shayanam Sharapanjare, and this is interesting, somebody who is speaking sweet words on the bed of arrows, when there is excruciating pain through the arrows that are piercing through the body, in that condition. So when we are ourselves mentally or physically hurt, we have a tendency to perpetuate agony to others. But Bhishma Dev is a very opposite example. He is himself in such a agony, but he is perpetuating affection. So Shayanam Sharapanjare. Apruchat. Yudhishthir again began to question Vividhan Dharman, various types of religious principles, essential principles of various religious duties. Rushinam cha anushrunvatam. There were also many rishis around. They also participate in hearing after. Anushrunvatam. So Yudhishthira was questioning, Bhishma was replying, and there are many other sages who were taking advantage of that conversation. We should also be very eager that whenever two Vaishnavas meet and have a conversation with each other, and of course they are okay with we being there, then we should take advantage of their discussion. Because usually in the conversation between two great souls, wonderful realizations, wonderful practical wisdom, and sometimes the hitches of the heart get addressed simply by sitting in that association. I remember once I was part of one forum where the discussion was about what should be the training syllabus or training pattern for the leaders of ISKCON. So I was actually doing juice service. They are big people, very, very senior members of our movement. And I was supposed to serve, whatever, kokum and juice like that. And the discussion was very enlivening. And the way they were talking, they're with concern and with also great insight, great deliberation about the topic. And that was the time I remember my personal desire to become, a teacher or a trainer or a learner of this service of how to do counseling, teaching, management, leadership got kindled. Simply being in that association. Because I could sense there is such a great need of this one particular service. Just recently Bhakti Rasamrut Maharaj came and he gave a very simple but very profound talk to the counselors board. And the essence of his advice was that goodness sustains, so sustain it. So you let goodness, mode of goodness be your natural platform from where you go out and play kabaddi with mode of passion and mode of ignorance, and again come back into your that natural stature. And very beautifully he spoke on this very simple, known, so to say, concept, but just the discussion back and forth, the way it happened, it really gave me a lot of food for my own application. So many things were not happening properly in maintaining goodness. So this is why Rushinam cha anushrunvatam. You want to hear as it is? Then I can just read it out to you. What was the discussion? He said, how do you sustain goodness? The first thing is to sit down and give full attention to your japa. That is called first dealing with goodness. Secondly, when you are attending meetings, don't do multitasking. Pay attention to what is going on. Third, sit down and give full attention to study of Prabhupada's books and hearing a lecture from your spiritual master. Don't do it in a flying mode. Then next is, he quoted an interesting saying, if you know your food or if you don't know your food, what is the need of medicine? So if you know your food, you are eating with proper conscientiousness, no need of medicine, you will not fall sick. And if you don't know your food, what you are eating, when you are eating, how you are eating, then even if you are taking any medicine, nothing is going to work. So what is the need of medicine? So another practice of goodness is to always separate issue from the person in dealing with separating issue from the person. For example, so a particular devotee is speaking negatively about us. Then typically we get on that devotee's case. But in our discussion or conversation with them, we have to address the issue of negative speech and not specifically point fingers at the person himself. It's called separate the issue and the person. What is devotee care? Very nicely defined. Fulfillment of needs and values of Vaishnavas in a way that fosters Krishna consciousness while handling what we can is called devotee care. Very, put a lot of clauses. Fulfillment of needs and values of Vaishnavas in a way that fosters Krishna consciousness and handled in the manner that we can is called devotee care. And there again the same point. More than what you say, how you say it matters. Do you have the trust, the needed relationship, or even the organizational position to correct? So be cautious about what, who, where we are speaking, because from there only a lot of issues get generated. So these were some tips on goodness living. To make goodness your normal platform of working, and then do kabaddi with passion. And for creation, passion is required. Sometimes for sleeping properly, ignorance is required. But that cannot be our default settings. So the point I was trying to make is simply sometimes being in a situation where personalities who are enlightened are speaking, and we may not ourselves not necessarily be part of a conversation. Just sitting and absorbing, we can actually gain immense benefits. So there were sages like Narada, Vyasa, so many of the names with Dhaumya. And they were just peacefully sitting. The king is asking questions, Bhishma is replying, and you will see one particular line which will be very shocking to you in the purport. Simply by doing this, sitting and hearing, everyone was feeling tremendous benefit in their heart. Question? Yeah, pleasantries are okay, but here our specific focus is when they are talking something. So usually it does benefit in some way. Even to see their exchanges with each other is very endearing. What to speak of if they are speaking something. But we should be also careful of what they need. Sometimes they need privacy and we go and stand there. And they wonder what is. So we read in Bhagavatam, Rushinam cha anushrunvatam. So that's not proper. We should know that we cannot get privy to all the discussions without having necessary eligibility. So, and it is not that we have to be part of everything. That's also there. But in general, if they allow, we should be part of it. Purport, 6th line. Lord's devotee like Bhishma Dev, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, even Vyasadeva. Hare Krishna. So I told you something is coming. And Prabhupada is using this from where? Because that all those sages are present. Yudhishthira has chosen Bhishma to ask questions, and unanimously every one of them agrees that here is the most qualified person to answer those questions. That is why Prabhupada is saying even Vyasadeva. So Bhishma's caliber in this question answer session surpasses even that of Vyasadeva. Little below. One should not have asked him any question at that time while somebody is passing away. But Lord Shri Krishna wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment. And thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. So all of us have this experience that when we start teaching or we conduct some classes or train other people, that when our body and mind are disturbed, the instructions that come out of our mouth are not very in perfect order to speak about the right way of life. We get very severely affected by the moods. On the contrary, pure devotees, even Srila Prabhupada for that matter, we know how, we must have seen that video, the final lesson. And Srila Prabhupada's, in the Vrindavan house that he stayed in, giving purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, and very frail, fragile voice, but very sharp and clear intelligence in giving instructions. So that is what is meaning of pure devotee are always sound in the body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment. Yudhishthira also preferred to solve his problematic questions by asking Bhishma Dev rather than asking anyone else. And then Prabhupada says, the father likes to see the son become more famous than himself. The Lord declares very emphatically that worship of his devotee is more valuable than the worship of the Lord himself. So Prabhupada is going to say one step further that a devotee even surpasses the Lord by the mercy of the Lord. Because Krishna himself was also present, but still Bhishma was the one who was chosen to answer the questions. Any comments or questions? So of course, on deathbed, with the disturbed mind and body, to speak perfect instruction, that is not demanded from us. While living in good condition, while just having a natural, day-to-day conversation with each other, we should try to maintain our sanity and speak in ways that people can understand the intent and the content of our speech properly. Text 26. Purusha svabhava vihitan yatha varnam yatha shramam vairagyaragopadhibhyam amnato bhaya lakshanan. Translation.
We should first define all the classifications of caste and others of life in terms of religion's qualification. There is systematically in twofold divisions described qualifications by attachment and inclination by attachment.
So, it said that apruchat vividhan dharman. Bhishma asked questions about various dharmas. What is the first you think he has asked about? Varnashrama dharma. Yudhishthira asked questions about Varnashrama dharma, and that's why this verse says Purusha Swabhava Vihitan Yatha Varnam Yatha Ashramam. It seems that this Varnashram is so important that for a king to have a flawless society, harmonious society, and to govern it in a Krishna conscious manner, to lead to the ultimate goal of every citizen, attainment of spiritual realization, Varnashrama plays a very, very important role. And therefore, as soon as you talk of organization, organizational leadership, management, the first thing we should bring up into discussion is Varnashrama. How are we trying to organize the personal lives and the society in a way that fosters people's swabhava, Purusha Swabhava Vihitan. So, Prabhupada gets into very detailed description of Varnas. And there is a clue given here if you want to know more. Mahabharata, Shanti Parva, beginning from 60th chapter. Prabhupada says in the purport. If you want, you can go there in that section of Mahabharata and get the elaborate discussion on this topic of Varnashram, if you really want to understand what it is. But then Prabhupada says, I will summarize it here in the purport. Prabhupada says the first line, second paragraph. The Varnashram Dharma is prescribed for civilized human being just to train him to successfully terminate human life. So, it's a very interesting way of writing. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of lower animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing and mating. Bhishma Dev advised all human beings 9 qualifications. So if you are a human being, you must have these qualifications. First, not to become angry. Hare Krishna. Not to lie. To equally distribute wealth. To forgive. To beget children only by one's legitimate wife. To be pure in mind and hygienic in body. Not to be inimical toward anyone. To be simple. And to support servants and subordinates. I think that also includes other members around in the family. One cannot be called a civilized person, my God, without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary qualities. Besides these, now begins the Varnan of Brahmana. So that is the rest of the paragraph. And the essential quality for Brahmana. For the intelligent men, controlling the senses is the most essential qualification. It is the basis of morality. So Brahmana's qualities are described in Bhagavad Gita with which first word? Shamaha. Shamaha means sense control. So that is the beginning. And then further it goes. What is the lifestyle of a Brahmana? Sex indulgence, even with a legitimate wife, must be controlled. Thereby family control will automatically follow. An intelligent man abuses his great qualifications if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means he must seriously make a study of the Vedic literatures, especially Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. For learning Vedic knowledge, one must approach a person who is 100% engaged in devotional service. He must not do things which are forbidden in Shastras. A person cannot be a teacher if he drinks or smokes. In the modern system of education, the teacher's academic qualification is taken into consideration without evaluation of his moral life. Therefore, the result of education is misuse of high intelligence in so many ways. So good education begins with moral teachers. That's the essential point. Recently I was doing some research, educational system and teacher training in India and Finland. Don't ask me questions why I did this, but it's part of my service. So in Finland, they have 3 things they do with the teachers. Number 1, if you become a teacher, the government assures you a lifelong job with very good salary, very good payment. Of course, in our Vedic concept, we don't take salaries, but I'm just talking about that your job security and your earning is well taken care of. You don't have to worry about it. That's the first thing. The second thing Finland government does is that there are laws that protect the teachers. Just like there are laws that protect the kids, from all that you cannot shout on them and, scream on them and all that. So then there are laws that protect teachers also. That they have certain rights of the way they can punish or assign certain tasks to their kids without being penalized for it. So there are laws about it to safeguard them. And third, after this, is that if a teacher is found in any of the boozing parties, liquor shops, brothels or anything like that, he is terminated from his service as a teacher. That's also there as a part of government policy. So the teacher has to have moral character. He cannot participate in illicit sex and intoxication at least. I don't know about meat eating and gambling. So those 2 things are taken care of. And this is Finland in modern times, their educational system. And they are experiencing tremendous results. In fact, recently Finland has invited ISKCON to help them set up curriculum. In case you are interested, please let me know. We can send you there. And they have a great deal of things to do because they find such value in our Indian traditional educational systems. How did I go there? Teacher. What is the quality for Brahmana or a teacher? So these are the qualities he is supposed to have. Now we go to Kshatriyas. Please read someone loudly, loud and clear. The Kshatriya.
The member of the administrative class is specially advised to give charity and not to accept charity in any circumstances. Modern administrators raise subscriptions for some political functions, but never charity to citizens in any state function.
Hare Krishna. Interesting observation.
It is just the reverse of the intentions of the Shastras. The administrative class must be well versed in the Shastra, but must not take the profession of teachers. Their energy should be specially directed toward killing the thieves,
Hare Krishna.
the cats, the black marketeers, and all such undesirable elements of society. The administrators should never pretend to become non-violent and thereby go to hell.
Prabhupada seems really upset about this language. Just doesn't come out, in a normal course of your dealing with an issue. Because after Ashok took to non-violence, India became ruled by foreign forces. Till then, India had a strong hold in the world history in terms of dominion by the Kshatriyas. And that's why Prabhupada is very strong about this point. Kshatriya cannot be non-violent. There is no such a thing.
When Arjuna wanted to become a non-violent god on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was severely chastised by Lord Krishna.
Non-violent coward. Prabhupada is really fired up.
The Lord degraded Arjuna at that time to the status of an uncivilized man for his avowed acceptance of the cult of non-violence. The administrative class must be personally trained in military education. Cowards should not be elevated to the presidential throne by the dint of
numerical votes only.
The monarchs were all chivalrous personalities, and therefore monarchy should be maintained, provided the monarch is regularly trained in the occupational duties of a king. In fighting, the king or the president should never return home without being hurt by the enemy. The so-called king of today never visits the warfield.
Hare Krishna.
Very much exploiting, artificially encouraging the fighting strength with the hope of false national prestige. As well as the administrative class is turned into a gang of mercantile and liberal men, the whole machinery of government becomes
Polluted. So, do you think Krishna consciousness has got some practical value? Or we only do Hare Krishna and sing our bhajans? The problem with us is we are not taking this Varnashram seriously. And that's why people keep criticizing us about it. You do your own things very nicely. But what are you doing for the society? So this is what is our 50% pending work, as our master told us, Prabhupada. And we should really get into this. So we have to figure out about our kids first to begin with. And then take participation into those organizational activities where we facilitate many other people's Varnashrama development. And thus organize society on these principles. Any questions? Any Kshatriyas here inspired by the language? Any Brahmanas? Anybody feel inspired after hearing the first paragraph that I think I would like to become like that? Good. You want to become teachers. How many of you want to become Kshatriyas? Violent. Non-covered. Okay. Let's go to Vaishyas. Let's hear who would like to become that. Read next, someone else from Mataji's side. The Vaishyas.
The Vaishyas, the members of the Panchat community, are especially advised to protect the cows. Cow protection means increasing the meat production, meaning curd and butter.
Hare Krishna.
Agriculture and distribution of foodstuff are the primary duties of the working class community.
Backed by?
Backed by education in basic knowledge and trained to give impact. As the Kshatriyas were given charge of protection of citizens, Vaishyas were given the charge of protection of animals. Animals are never meant to be killed. Killing of animals is a symptom of barbarian society. For a human being, agricultural produce, fruits and milk are sufficient and comparative foodstuff. The human society should give more attention to animal protection. The productive energy of the labourer is misused when he is occupied by industrial enterprises. The industry of various types cannot produce the essential needs of man, namely rice, meat, grain, milk, fruit and vegetables. The production of machines and machine tools increase the artificial living pattern of a class of vested creatures and keeps thousands of men in starvation and hunger. This should not be the standard of civilization.
Powerful. So agriculture, Krushi, and Vanijya, distribution of foodstuff, and Goraksha, cow protection. These are the three main activities. Of course, they should be backed in education, Vedic knowledge, and trained to give in charity. Kshatriya is trained to not live by charity, but to give charity. Brahmana is trained to accept charity but not misuse charity. Getting the kind of trainings. And the Vaishyas are encouraged to give charity. In fact, we have a forum called Artha Forum in our ISKCON, where they encourage many great industrialists, businessmen who are able to produce money and who either by force or by willingness, CSR, want to do some good to the society. They are encouraged to use their money wisely. Animals are never meant to be killed, and uncivilized human beings need to be properly punished. Killing of animals is a symptom of barbarian society. How many of you feel like this when you are going across a chicken or mutton shop? That I am cause of this. You feel like that? So you may say, we don't eat chicken and mutton. How are we cause of this? Any clue? When you see a cow eating on a garbage dump, eating some plastic, do you feel I am responsible for this? Feel responsible? So this is very important. And we should not just simply agree in principle with these things. We should actively participate in following our varnashram and offering others their varnashram. That is the solution for all these problems. Otherwise they will just continue and become hellish. So Prabhupada says, for a human being, what is needed in life? Agriculture will produce fruits, milk. They are sufficient and compatible foodstuffs. Then they need to do animal protection, specifically cow. And don't spend laborers' energy into industrial enterprises, but put them into getting the essentials of life. Rice, wheat, grains, milk, fruits, vegetables. That is where the laborer class actually should be engaged by the capitalistic class, Vaishyas. So if you were to follow, how many of you feel inspired by this Vaishya category? Okay, few of you. So I'll give you some homework, and that is, what can you do within your own circle of influence to create economy that is based on these principles? Can you create some economy? A business model or some enterprise that will be self-sustaining, if not productive, but will follow these principles. At least you yourself, as a one family, get your own roti kapda, facilities made through it, if possible for others. So think in this direction. Take some land, get some arrangement for cow protection. Mind you, cow protection is perpetual. It's like having deities at home. You have to think about, after you die, who will take care. To that extent, the cow protection also has to be taken care of. So don't just get into something without proper knowledge. But make a model. If tomorrow the economy collapses, you at least have a piece of land, water to drink, grains to produce, and some milk. If this much can you manage, I'm talking about selfish thing, just do it for yourself. But it would be really nice if you do it on a better scale, where a whole society around is engaged. So that should not be the standard of civilization, to stay in cities, to artificially work in industries, to go on fulfilling unnecessary demands of the mind, of entertainment and all this meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication. This is not civilization at all. And we should become convinced of this ourselves first. That when you enter a mall, say for example, shopping mall, we should not be in the mood of, oh, how much am I missing out, after becoming we should be actually feeling sympathy that this whole enterprise is nothing but a distraction. These are called weapons of mass distraction, not destruction. And the consciousness is completely taken away from the main subject matters of life, which are the essential things in life. One should really see like this. Now we read about Shudras. Someone please read aloud how to organize this.
As intelligent, one should have no independence. They are meant for rendering sincere service to three higher sections of society. The Shudra class can prevent all comfort of life simply by rendering service to the higher classes. It is especially enjoined that the Shudra should never ban. As soon as the Shudras accumulate
I hope when Prabhupada says women, you understand what it means. It means actually active interest in sex life without pursuing self-realization. So it's not about women as a class, but as an activity.
The higher castes should always look after the maintenance of the Shudras, and they should provide them with prayer and use garlands. The Shudra should not leave his master when the master is old and invalid, and the master should keep the servants satisfied in all respects. The Shudras must first of all be satisfied by sumptuous food and clothing before any sacrifice is performed. In this age, so many functions are held by spending millions, but the poor laborer is not sumptuously fed or giving charity, clothing, etc. The laborers are thus dissatisfied, and so they make agitation.
Very practical. I heard in Pune alone, the food wastage after the marriages takes place per day has the capacity to feed at least 70,000 people. This is the marriages. I'm not talking about the hotels and... Can you imagine? And sometimes that food is cooked not because those people who have come are going to eat it, because they have a lot of problems with their diabetes and all the... It is just to show off that we have money and we can throw lavish party. So this is the horrible condition. So there is some fellow who started this, I don't know what organization that is, but they collect all this food in Pune, and there is a location from where you can go and get it. Any hungry man can just go there and get some food. They tell people that whatever you are throwing away, don't throw it. We have freezers here, and we store the food and we take it out and give it to whoever wants the next, with some cycle of day or two preservation being done. So interesting service in the society. Anyways, so what happens when a Shudra gets money? He goes into sinful habits. What happens when a Shudra has a master who doesn't care for him? Agitation. Satisfied in all respects. You remember in our old days in India, there would be generations of masters being served by generations of their servants. And they were perfectly happy in their condition of food, clothing, even their marriages, falling sick, having some issues will be sorted out by the master. And this is not slavery. It is just like I have my legs in my body. Are they important or not? There is no argument about it, because without legs there is no movement to the whole body. So the moment there's a disrespect that comes in picture anywhere, that one class thinks themselves superior and others as inferior, that is where the whole trouble comes. Everybody does their respective function and respects the other class for their function, then the whole society can run very peacefully. So how many of you feel that you are Shudra category? You belong here. Well, I feel so. Less intelligent and should have no independence. By precise description. Yes.
Paying them, but still we have to pay. Please stop. We already paid you or not. Sometimes 50 calls we have to make them, then only they come and just make one trade machine or whatever. It's become like, I find so they doesn't look like they are Shudra the way they are behaving, the way they are, and they don't need the money the way they are actually today.
Yeah, there are two issues. There are things where we should become self-sufficient and not overly depend on another's mercy. That is one of the causes of losing your life, reducing your lifespan. Prabhupada describes that Manda Sumanda Matayo purport. Manda Bhagya Upa. Why people are losing their lifespan in Kali Yuga? It is not so much because of lack of food or nourishment. It is because of unhealthy habits and over dependence on another's mercy. So that's first thing we should work out, that we are not dependent on anybody. Usually we would manage our own drilling and cooking and cleaning, all that work. Only for some higher cause can we actually delegate these things to others, but not like out of laziness. Then second, what to do with such persons? Usually I highly recommend that we go a little out of the way to figure out the real needs and values, the backgrounds, the personalities of the people that we are taking service from. To an extent that we create a healthy, secure relationship with them. At least they recognize that in this person there is no exploitation. In this person there is no unnecessary demands. In this person there is never going to be the case that I did some fair service and I was not paid fairly. So that whole thing has to be addressed first. So when they find value in us as their, so to say, employer, then those people may reciprocate. Another suggestion I have, very practical one, I don't know how much you would like it, that you should may not be exactly adopt, but at least raise, based on some Varnashrama calculation, a particular child of a family, and really give them the best you can in terms of food, clothing, shelter, education, etc. And also in return you can ask them to perform service. Not child means child labor, like small. And there are people who connect at that level because they sense that these persons are not exploitative. In modern times the labor laws are so crazy and the whole atmosphere has become so charged with faithlessness towards each other. These things are very difficult. But even now in villages you will see. The other day when we are attending Artha Forum, one person was telling Bhakti Rasamrut Maharaj that he had one boy who came to him and he said, I somehow or other want to get educated. Will you help me? I don't want to rot in this poverty that I'm seeing all around me. And he actually supported that boy. So he stayed with him, he did whatever was to be done for the family, but he actually got properly raised. And he eventually became whatever, engineer, this, that. And now he's standing on his own legs, doing things nicely, like this. So it's a win-win for either party. Also, if possible, we should give our maid servants or whoever they are a little more exposure to spirituality and our culture, and figure out if willingly, without force, if they're able to chant or at least do something that gradually brings in goodness, or at least a sense of dutifulness, that I need to deal with these people in a different way than how I deal with outsiders, because these are God's people. And we should not take it as an advantage, but it's nice if you have a maid servant, anyways you are asking them to cook or whatever, they're chanting, they're offering, it's very appropriate. That general sense we are gathering because we are focused on the activity and we are not focusing on the purpose. If you focus on the activity, then mind goes into that duality. Being an intelligent teacher is better than being a laborer under somebody. That. But even without the acceptance of Varnashrama by modern society, the modern society nevertheless has these four things going on. What are they blaming us for? Do they not have intellectual class of people sitting in Harvard, Oxford, in their ivory towers and doing fundamental research? Funda that is mental. Correct. That was not the case in Vedic culture. That's a wrong understanding. In Vedic culture, everybody got equal opportunity to prove themselves. Guna karma vibhagashaha, not janma. So that's a...
My question was, how do we get out of the sense of like,
we have to study the character sketches of personalities, like we have Mahapurna, born in Shudra family but a great devotee, pure devotee. We have the story of Kanakadas, very famous, born in Shudra family. I think I forget. I think Shudra family. Yeah. So, but being a great devotee of the Lord, we have to hear in each of these classes how wherever individuals who practice that social culture but transcended the, transcended that situation to become pure devotees. So that's one way to get respect. Another way is it's sheer logic. There is no way you can disrespect your legs in your own body. If you claim that these are my legs, my hands, my belly, my head, if you really have that atmiyata, you cannot disrespect. It is not possible. No matter what description of the work that they perform. Okay, you say they are just making movement, for the body possible. But how does that make you disrespectful? So ourselves, we have to become Krishna conscious, then we will become non-envious. And when representing to others, we should not get into convincing them about these concepts. We should first get them into convincing about the necessary difference between spirit and matter. The necessary usability of spiritual concepts in their personal lives. Forget social organization. So that is where we begin. So personal development, organizational development, societal development. These are the three levels. So we should know where we are acting upon when we are dealing with people. Now comes the discussion on ashram. Question. If you want to become a leader in society, you need to have a stature where you are independently functional and thoughtful. Therefore, whether you are a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra, whatever it is, you right now focus on coming to a situation where at least your personal needs are met by these kind of arrangements. You have a land, whatever it is, inheritance, land, cow, whatever. Then you are self-sufficient and independent. Then you go and figure out what kind of contribution you want to render in the society. So when we said that let every one of our devotees have 1 acre land and 1 cow, that was with the intention that we should not be over-dependent with the current way of the economy and the way the society is going in an artificially bifurcated manner from the main, the needs of human beings. We are getting them fulfilled in a very, very indirect manner, not directly. So that we need to do so that we can do service properly to others. Just imagine a devotee is a great preacher and he is going around being counselor or whatever. Tomorrow he is sacked in his job. They'd give him a pink sheet and send him home. Can he be a counselor? Can he do his service as a leader? It becomes such a big problem just to run a family, maintain something. Why? Because he has never figured out any alternative to become self-sufficient and independent. So this is needed for creating a platform so that we can render a service. So these are not in war with each other. So we create this as best as we can. What is it that is pending?
What I felt is, if you are very young, then you have to rather focus on that rather than becoming and trying to become self-sufficient. So,
somehow inherently in our genes we have become convinced of the fact that the norms of the society and the current setups are irreversible, and my role in it is also kind of irreversible. So say, take that example of the maid, why we should become self-sufficient. If you are really a Brahmana, you should have such bare minimum needs that you don't need anybody to serve you. And if at all you are taking some service from someone, like you rightly said, it is only so that you can do some higher work peacefully. But that's a conscious choice of becoming dependent.
Vedic culture also, Brahmanas had people who were working for them. It was not like, even though they were simple, they didn't have much needs, all of that was true. But as part of the society, the structure, you are dependent on others, and that's a good thing, that you depend on others and you get service from others.
Independence in the context of meeting one's personal needs. Dependence in the context of wanting to render social contribution. These are two different topics we are discussing, two parallel tracks we are going on in the discussion. That's part of ashrama. It's not varna. We are talking varna here. Ashram we'll just now discuss. The next paragraph talks about ashram, what is to be done with our ashram. We are talking only varna. A Brahmana as a varna is independent of anybody else. That we have to get convinced of. Cooking, cleaning, what do you need for eating? Some cleanliness, hygiene, and maybe some medicinal or health related hygiene issues. और क्या लगता है? We have to be self-sufficient with this. So that's and we are talking here, what she is asking is becoming dependent for what? We want, that is interdependentness, where we actually get other people along, get good work done out of them. We also do higher things in life, not that we keep like our sannyasis, they have people to wash their clothes, to fetch them their facilities. They don't get into those, मेरा ticket booking हुआ क्या train flight का, that they are not dependent. That doesn't mean that they don't know how to do those things themselves. So that interdependentness is for rendering higher service. But in general, we should be thoroughly independent of all this. Swayam Sanchalit. So first we develop this and then we get into this. That's all I am saying. I'll just complete this last paragraph before the time gets over, because that talks about ashram. The varnas are, so to speak, classification of different occupations. And ashrama dharma is gradual progress on the path of self-realization. Both are interrelated. And one is dependent on the other. Which means ashrama is dependent on varna, varna is dependent on ashrama. The main purpose of ashram dharma is to awaken knowledge and detachment. Just two words, but so important. The brahmachari ashrama is the training ground. In this ashram, it is instructed that this material world is not actually the home of the living being. The conditioned souls under material bondage are prisoners of matter. POW tha pehle, prisoners of war. POM, prisoners of matter. And therefore self-realization is the ultimate aim of life. The whole system of ashrama dharma is means to detachment. One who fails to assimilate the spirit of detachment is allowed to enter into family life with the same spirit of detachment. Therefore, one who attains detachment may at once adopt the fourth order, namely renounced, and thus live on charity only, not to accumulate wealth, but just to keep body and soul together for ultimate realization. Householder life is for one who is attached. Vanaprastha sannyas is for those who are detached. And brahmachari is meant for training both the attached and the detached. So speaking about ashrama, each ashrama, like our typical example, that brahmacharya ashram is like general ward. You know, when you get admitted in the hospital, you go and stay in a general ward, and there the doctors don't come on time, the treatment is very irregular, and things happen haphazard. Sometimes the food is not good quality, and the beds are all, you know, lined up one next to another. Another person is coughing, somebody is sneezing, all that you have to, you know, get into all the trouble, you know. So that is called general ward, brahmachari life. Now some people, they don't want to pay the special facility. They are okay with this kind of thing. Whenever the doctor comes, gives an injection, cures the disease, no problem, you know. But there are people, they can't tolerate this. They say, what is this? You know, general ward. So then Grihastha Ashrama is like a private ward with a nurse. So they administer you the medicine. So the nurse can be male or female, depending on who you are in general. So the husband is the nurse for the wife. The wife is the nurse for the husband. Don't mind the analogy. And they administer not just bitter things, but also good things in life. That they give care, affection, you know, the well-being is looked after and things like that. So in the private ward, there is another issue. The doctor may come on time and things may happen a little more predictably well. But then there is a higher price to pay. You know, you cannot just... So the general ward cannot say that I want treatment of that caliber, but I will not, you know, get into the trouble of being so, you know, responsible for other things, money making for that matter. And these people cannot say that, oh, देखो general ward के लोगों को कितना अच्छा जीवन है, कुछ टेंशन नहीं, कुछ पैसा कमाना नहीं पड़ता है, all that kind of. The point is, we are in a hospital, ISKCON, and our medicine for our Bhavarog, holy name, is being administered to us. So the more we take the medicine seriously, it just doesn't matter where are you situated. If you take the medicine sincerely, following the prescriptions and the prescriptions given by the spiritual master, the doctor, everything will work out fine for you. But if you know, with your twisted intelligence, try and do things that are not meant for your situation, then you will unnecessarily complicate. So, there is no need of comparing, contrasting, proving superiority, inferiority, anything like that. So that is the purpose of ashrama, to ascertain at the given instance what is the need and how should I act wisely in this situation to fulfill those needs, so that I can be facilitated in my Krishna consciousness. That's part of knowledge. And what is the part of detachment? The detachment part is that whether you are in general ward or private ward, there will be situations in your life that will repeatedly prove to you that you are not the enjoyer, you are not the controller, you are not the proprietor. You know, repeatedly there's, you know, enlightenment will come, these realizations will come, and one has to heed to them, which means one has to use that negative energy situations to go closer to Krishna. Not become fed up and, you know, quit. मैं जनरल वार्ड में भी नहीं रहूँगा, प्राइवेट वार्ड में भी नहीं रहूँगा, मैं क्या रास्ते पे आकर रहूँगा. That's not the option. One has to situate oneself in the ashrama properly. So I hope this makes sense. Why we should situate ourselves in certain manner to get the best situation. Any comments or questions? What is Vanaprastha? Prabhuji is developing detachment. So, Vanaprastha is when the husband and wife have attained maturity in terms of age, years, 50. And I don't know about how the biological things work in the body at that time, but I think there is no more chance of having progeny, there is no more chance of having extra dealings, sensuous dealings. So one has to naturally become detached, come to a stage where one understands that the the rigors of my grihastha life that I have gone through. Now the time has come where I hand over, to the next generation. And I focus mainly on spiritual cultivation. So that is the beginning of Vanaprastha. So Prabhupada says there is no Vana in modern times. So there is no Vanaprastha, going and staying in a jungle. But we have temples, we have farm communities, we have educational institutions in ISKCON, where we can seek a proper shelter and do some dhasu service. And keep our especially spiritual practices intact, morning program. Throughout the day, have some engagement as per our past Varna to further directly the goals of Krishna consciousness movement, not so much personal agenda. Currently, ISKCON is not in a position to support Vanaprasthas the way they support Brahmacharis economically. That's an unfortunate situation, but I think it will soon come a stage where Vanaprasthas are also equally facilitated. So we recommend that you create a facility by which you are not institutionally dependent on ISKCON and get into that service mode eventually. The Vanaprasthas are the greatest need of our society right now, because otherwise that buffer is not there, everything goes to the sannyasi. The whole load of brahmachari and grihastha's pressure. Boom. And that's why we have so much history of our fall downs and troubled, spiritual practices by the sannyasis. And what can those poor people do? You put so much on them. So they have to look after their spiritual life, their disciples' lives, their organizational commitments. So it's not very natural. So we encourage you to start planning now, and when an appropriate time comes, you actually take to this practice very nicely. There is no need of sannyas, but at least for Vanaprastha, one should thoroughly prepare and start living in that direction. There is a plan that they want to support Vanaprasthas. At least I am convinced that in future, if somebody, the training that we offer and people that come up, if they're, they come up to a common understanding, and just like we have this Bhaktivedanta Vidyashram, we'll have a Vanaprastha ashram, where we will look after the Vanaprasthas. They don't have to worry about their health and basic needs, nothing. And then they do service for the society. So that's a later stage. But okay, so thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.